All right, everyone, welcome back to the Sarah Centrella Show. And I'm excited to have this conversation today because I think there's so many mutual interests and passions. Anyone who knows me knows my passion for sports, for one thing, and for travel for another. And so I want everybody to meet former NFL star. You are a travel aficionado. You have a travel vlog, you have a travel company, all kinds of amazing stuff. Everyone, welcome to the show, John Bronson. Welcome, John.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, we have lots of fun things to get into. I want to pick your brain about all kinds of amazing things. But before we do all that, I know kind of your career started in football. It sounds like you spent several years as a tight end in Arizona with the Cardinals. And it didn't end there. It didn't totally start there, right? I'm sure the dream to play in the NFL started way before that. So can you tell us a little bit about the backstory of that part of the dream, and then we'll talk about how it's transitioned over time.
Yeah, absolutely. So to start, I grew up in Kent, Washington. Actually, I was born in Hawaii. I grew up in Kent, Washington. When I was young, I traveled a lot just because my dad was in the army, and so I spent a lot of time on the road. And as I grew up in Washington State, I just kind of immersed in football. I remember like my uncle putting me in football when I was young, super young, and I just kind of gravitated towards that. And so worked my way up through the ranks throughout high school and through college. Ended up going to Penn State University. I have three younger siblings, so I always like to share that. Two of them of which, and I don't know if you saw that, but two of them of which have also played in the NFL.
Yeah, that's
And then
amazing.
yeah, and my sister also, is world class college athlete in her day. So I come from a very big athletic
Athletic,
family.
yeah.
So yeah, so for me, it was part of the DNA just to play football, play sports, and thank God I had the opportunity to do so at the professional level with Arizona Cardinals. So yeah.
Yeah, no kidding. So what was it like first time you're out there, you're living your dream, you've signed your contract, what did it feel like to realize a dream that you'd worked so hard for?
I'll be honest with you. I wasn't probably as shocked as I should have been because all of the things that you said, I've always been kind of a firm believer if you kind of work at your craft, work
Right.
at your goals and things that you want to accomplish, that in some way or fast or form, they'll come true. So for me, it was literally since I was young. I know every kid has this dream, but since I was young, I wanted to go to the NFL. Now, if you listen to my words carefully, I also got what I asked for. I
Right.
wanted to go to the NFL. I never put this parameters on saying I wanted to be a Hall of Famer or win the Super Bowl, which or play X amount of years. Which maybe in hindsight I could have
Yeah.
accentuated my goals a bit more. So I always share that part. But for me, it was one of those scenarios where I really just worked hard at every step of the way throughout college, throughout high school, throughout college, and even in that time between college and the pros, just to make sure that I at least had the best chance. So I did not want to leave that opportunity and that time frame and going, dang, I should have,
Yeah.
could have, would have if I'd have
Yeah.
did more. So I left it out there, as I say. I honestly left it all out there in the field during that time frame.
I love that. You said two really important things. Number one, I totally believe that we get what we ask for or we manifest what we focus on. And I think it is so interesting. I've done that many times where I've manifested the exact thing I asked for. And I was like, oh, damn, I should have done a quick little 360
Yeah, yeah.
to make
Hmm.
sure that that is either the extent of what I wanted or if it was really what I wanted. So I think that's a really important point. I think a lot of people are maybe just focused on one thing to the degree of like, is it a checkbox? Yes or no? Did I do it? Yes or no? And they don't kind of think beyond that of like, what is the life and lifestyle going to be like? What is my everyday going to be like? And really kind of flush that out to the point of, yeah, this is the life I want. I can see myself doing that. That's such an interesting point. Do you feel like you have learned that lesson, or you learned that lesson and now scope your next chapters and your next steps a little further?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just that time frame was a learned lesson, and that statement alone, just I guess it's just, they call it selling yourself short in
Right.
this instance, right? And so, but I don't look at that as a negative. It's just it was what happened, right? So
Right.
moving forward in life, I look forward any goals or any aspirations, things I look to aspire to do.
Right.
I make sure that as you kind of said, I really look at the full picture of what that goal is, what I'm looking to achieve. So it's more meaningful and actionable, but also I feel that I can completely have the complete wholeness of that particular experience. And so, and
Yeah.
that's, yeah, so that's basically, on the many things that I've done in my lifetime, I generally never, um, come away feeling like, again, I didn't want to feeling again like, dang, maybe if I had did this or did
Right.
this,
Right.
or yeah. So I generally give it all I got and whatever I'm involved with, and I feel good about that. You know,
Yeah,
I,
absolutely. The other thing that you said that I think is just so key and applies to everyone is that when it came time for that dream to come true, you were like, yeah, of course, this is what's going to happen. And I think that's so true and so profound when you have done the work, like you said, right? It's something that you put in every single day. You knew what you needed to do to get to the next level. You studied the process in whatever way, I'm sure, and made sure that you were at the level that you needed to be in. But that confidence didn't come just from like hanging out and playing video games when you were 15 or whatever, and not actually putting in the work. And I think a lot of people are kind of sitting on the sidelines of their life a little bit going, okay, well, yeah, that's what I want, and I'm going to get to it at some point, but I don't really believe it. But belief kind of comes from putting in the work, like it's not something that you just wake up with if you're not going to be willing to work for it.
no, absolutely. And look, I will even always say myself, I made that goal of getting there, and that came true. That happened, and I was able to stick around for a little bit. But there's a whole another set of, you got to repurpose your goals, or like
Yes.
just and just reevaluate is actually what I'm reevaluate. And so that was basically a learned lesson that personally I didn't even do as much at that point, was reevaluate what was the next goals after that,
Right.
and to like go, okay, well, I'm here now, I'm in the door, I'm in the NFL, and with all the
Now what?
a lot of now what, right? I
Yeah.
never had at that point. I never had reevaluated to go almost, before time was too late. And so, I say that to anybody listening, whatever it is. Of course, we're talking
Yep.
about football and sports here, but whatever your goals are, what you want to do, when you find yourself getting to a point where where you're closer, you're like, okay, I've made it to where I wanted to go. Then now you got to go back and almost like start again from that point where you're at, to reevaluate, to see how you can better equip your resources and the things that you're at to further move your goals to accomplish. And so that's one thing, looking back, that if you said, oh, 20 years, I'm dating myself here, what would I've done like in sport, I would have, once I signed that initial first agreement, I would have, well, okay, now the next step is to, get Pro Bowl number one, then Super
Right.
Bowl number two, and so on and so forth. And you never know how things turn out. But these are things. This is life, and it's learning. And I learned that part. But I'm also happy about how things progress too, and in my life moving forward for the most part.
Yeah. I think that is also just so key. And that is one of the things I've worked with athletes with for well over a decade, is those transitions of what's next. Because not just athletes, everyone probably listening who's achieved something big in their life, whether it was, getting the job that you always wanted or whatnot, most people don't scope beyond that. They just scope to the next step or the next thing and don't really think about like, hey, how is that going to change my life? What do I want after that? Especially if it's the big dream, right? Or the big accomplishment, it kind of feels like, well, there is nothing after that, right? But there always is. And we always have to be putting in the same work that got us there to get us to the next level. So I'm super curious because I know that can be really hard for anyone. Again, doesn't matter kind of what you're doing, if you've been successful in kind of one thing, to make the change and say, all right, now I got to figure out what is my next thing. What has that transition? What was it like for you in the initial part? And then we'll talk about all the success you've had since then.
Yeah. So, the first thing I always say to that in general is, you definitely need, obviously, people say all the time, definitely need a plan, and you definitely need at least an understanding of what is next. So for me, you know, maybe this is just, my personality, but I kind of was always around. I didn't play a lot, so I always say that actually helped me probably to have more time to go
Yeah,
to take advantage of these these charity events that, for instance, I played with Larry Fitzgerald and Kurt Warner, some of these other guys. They got very even more stricter timelines, because they're bigger
right,
name guys. They're all Hall of Famers or to be, guys like that. Whereas me, I was able to take, hey, who can do this? Oh, I could do that. I didn't have nothing else to do.
right. I love that though. It's taking advantage of all the opportunities that are in
All
front of
the
you, which we should
opportunities.
always do. Yeah,
Absolutely. There's tons of opportunities that you had available in every standpoint. So for me, I took advantage of that, not just in the sake of that, but just to be around other people, other business owners, other businessmen, businesswomen that knew more than a lot more than I did, especially in the business world. So I really took that literal to really enhance my own network of people, and to be able to learn from, to get information from, to
yeah,
or quite frankly, just to know or have whenever something comes up, right?
right,
Mentor, whatever the case is. So I believe so. For me, that was the biggest trajectory to help me with basically in anything, and it's still helping me in anything that I'm
right,
wanting to do post football, to really just help to accentuate what it is that you want to do in your next career. So, for me, I'm always a component about, connecting with people and networking,
yes,
even more so than the information itself, because I always say, like, if person, you have his Rolodex, you can always make a call to find an answer. Um, then you spending the time initially trying to find the answer yourself. So
right.
that's where I really excelled in being able to expand my network around people just by the access that I've had as a player initially, that rolled over into my after football life.
I think that's so wise, and so wise at a young age, right? Like you were probably really young when all this was happening. And I think that a lot of players miss that. And it's such a golden opportunity, no matter what you do in sports, it could be gone tomorrow, like you can get injured and it can be over in 5 seconds. My son plays football at the University of Oregon, and
Okay.
I told him this is his big dream, but same, he doesn't play very much. He's a backup center. He works just as hard as everybody else. He's out there doing all the other things. And so I always told him, like, it's the proximity of everyone that you're around. Take advantage of that. And that sounds bad. People might take it the wrong way. It's not at all. It's if the universe opens a door for you, it is incumbent on you to make the most of every single opportunity given in every possible way. And making relationships is something that can completely change the trajectory of your life.
The relationship building is a big part in college and in pro. I mean, I went to Penn State. Oregon's also very high in that regards as
Yeah.
well. There's a lot of people, so like even in college, this is not just a professional sport or deal. Like, you can make a lot of connections and get to know a lot of people, by
Yeah.
by the surroundings that you're in, currently. And so, and I will say this, after the collegiate and the pro levels, like, it doesn't, unless you already have that network to grow from, it doesn't get easier to
Right.
get through those doors. It becomes a
Yep.
little harder. You still have some leverage, but harder. But it is much easier once you're an active player to be able to get through,
Yeah, no
to get
kidding.
to get on lists and get in certain doors and get to certain appointments and get to certain
Yep.
people, than it is, 10 years down the road, to do so. So I always, would recommend anybody to leverage that. And it's okay to, to leverage. Everybody is
Right.
interested in. And there's people, a lot of those guys or girls are interested in mentorship and
Exactly.
giving information. I have a guy that I've been going to 20 over 15, 20 years, and he's been one of the greatest mentors that I've ever had. Just it can be a random conversation. Like,
Yep.
he's built a business, built a big 30, $40 million a year business. So for me to go to him, he kind of came across everything he's ever came across. So those are type of people that you want to stay in front of, and at least having your Rolodex for whenever things come up, and you have questions about anything,
Yeah.
especially related to business.
That's such an amazing tip. And I'm telling you, I think a lot of people are afraid to do it or feel uncomfortable doing it. But if you're looking at it like, what can I also bring to the table? And we can always, every single one of us can bring something to the table. We can bring our own knowledge, our own wisdom. Maybe it's just listening. Maybe it's just being there for somebody. There's always something that you can bring so that the knowledge is an exchange. And then, like you said, passing it on. Being a mentor to someone else is also just so key.
Yeah, and being yourself is something that's important there. And as athletes, I know, especially in the pro room, the biggest disconnect is that it's assuming that a lot of these people, a lot of those people want something from them. It's way far from the truth. Their pocketbook is generally a lot bigger than theirs. They're the ones writing checks for them for to be in the field, or they own certain companies that
Right.
we look at, buildings we see every day. So it's just like an understanding of literally, like, what leverage of how to leverage it, and how to that understanding that connection may not necessarily mean that you need to literally connect today for something to move something forward. It doesn't mean that you need to do something for them or they need to do something for you right away. It's just having a growing relationship like you would with a family member, or
Right.
wife, husband, wife, or whatever, boyfriend, girlfriend. The same type of scenario, just in the business format, that but that you can have for many of years, whatever you need.
Yeah. Is that kind of what attracted you to Social 4M? Now you're the executive director of
Mhm.
that organization. Tell us a little bit about that, because I've been looking into it. I'm like, oh my God, this sounds amazing. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing now.
Yeah, absolutely. So, just to give clarity to that, so actually, I started a network initially 10 years ago, 12, a long time ago, 12 years ago, that was called PAC. And so, a buddy of mine who's the founder of Social 4M, he used to come to my events back then in the day, and back then. And so, couple of that, along with me being former president of NFLPA in Phoenix, I was able to be around obviously a lot of athletes, especially in football, but also, as I kind of mentioned, a lot of business people.
Yeah.
What I saw was a lot of what I've been saying, this disconnect in connectivity, right?
Right.
On this side of the train, you have a lot of athletes that they're looking for information, they're looking for education, certain aspects. On this side, you got a lot of people with information, education in certain fields or categories, industries. So why not merge, and opportunities? So why not
Right.
merge the two? So I started that years ago. I ended up having a life have a tragedy. So I pivoted, and went on this travel binge, as I'm sure we'll talk about. But what led me to Social 4M was, with his name is Anthony Davenport, and as we've stayed in contact, he's the owner of Regal Credit Management, also. And so we stayed in contact many years and did some modest business here and there. Long story short, I was in Bali on my last trip to last year, and we reconnected, and it had been growing Social 4M, and I was making my journey back into the U.S.
Yeah.
because I've been in the U.S. for a long time. And of course, he already knew what I was about, already done. I was seeing where Social Forum was going, and they have been really big in the entertainment space and looking to grow the sports space. And I spent a lot of time in the sports space, so we just merged together, and I jumped aboard Social Forum as executive director to move things forward and really elevate what they've been doing in sports and entertainment space for net connection and resource hub.
Uh,
So So yeah, basically, like I said, what's social for him is a sports entertainment network. We basically provide resources and connectivity for industry related people that within the sports and entertainment community. So
I love
that's how I got started. Just a connection from
that.
years ago,
Yep, exactly.
merged,
The relationships we just talked about, right? That's
stay
exactly
connected.
it.
Yeah, and I'm coming back in after my trips around the
Yeah.
world,
I
and
love
here we
that
are. So
because you're still in a space that you are passionate about, that you have
very
expertise on,
passionate.
that you love,
Hmm.
and I think there is such a huge need for that because it's everyone knows everyone, sort of, right? You know of someone, maybe you met like 2 minutes and we're like, yeah, yeah, I know you. But it's also super siloed, like the team that you're on, yeah, you get close with everyone on the team, families might get close and stuff. But then you go to the next team and then you're close. So it's like all these like pockets that are really separated a lot of times, I think. So I love the idea of mixing expertise in with the entertainment and the athletes. I think it's really needed, to grow that diverse understanding because a lot of people don't have that access otherwise.
It's really important, and initially, especially when you're around players of such, you spend the first 5 or 10 minutes talking about sport in some
Right.
aspect, right? Remember that game? If you're
Yeah, yeah.
former or if you're active, it's probably like, we should have won that game, or wow, we won that game, and that was a heck of a play, whatever. That's all good and fun, but what really moves the needle is having those that they like and appreciate your sport and what you do, but that can help move the business aspect of
Right.
things, whatever that things that you're interested in, real estate, a lot, it can be something financially motivated. It can be insurance. It can be travel, whatever it is. But those are the people that can help move those conversations forward. And so that's what we really emphasize within Social Forum is bringing that out. We're not tossing the sports or
Right.
music to the side. That's the leverage, right? That's how you got in the door in theory. But what we're saying is that let's elevate information and education, and in some cases opportunities by um, commingling it with people that have excelled in these
Yeah.
other spaces that you haven't, that you haven't. So
And it also creates a unique interest or community of pre-vetted. A lot of times it's hard to trust people's intentions if someone just approaches you and whatever. So I love the fact that like there's there's a bit of pre-vetting that has gone on to create a safe space. So, whether you're an athlete or you're a mom sitting at home, there is a community for you that is like that is pre-vetted where you can go in and feel safe.
absolutely, yeah. I mean, we that kind of goes without saying for us, and you have to be in the environment and kind of being the environment, business or not,
Right.
to to have the conversation. So we make sure that, and that really helps move the conversation forward. And like I said, like quite frankly, a lot of the people, especially in our social forum network, on the business side, these are hard people that also would come out to
Right.
events, whatever. So it's not like that they're waiting for to see a bunch of athletes. No, it's more in theory. The athlete side probably need them more,
Trying to get in front of them.
or
Yeah.
exactly, or the
Yeah.
musician side, right, need them more than vice versa. And so I say all of this just to kind of merge into the what's possible when you put good people into a room,
Yeah.
and to be able to have these conversations to move forward in many different industries. And I find it very powerful and a way to really uplift the community, so you don't aren't in a situation. And I'm always sports heavy, but it's entertainment as well.
Right.
So you're in a situation where you are looking for that what's next. You can at least, oh, okay, oh, this is going, okay, you know what, last year somebody was talking about franchise, and I really like that X company that whatever is making something up,
Yeah.
coffee company that I saw, like maybe I'll look into that. Maybe, what, I have a connection to them. It's just about, but you can do that when you have this Rolodex.
Yeah.
If you don't, now you're trying to figure out and educate yourself, and And there's
It's
nothing wrong with
smart.
that. It's just nothing. It's just much harder
Yeah.
to get to the same goal that you want to accomplish for your
Yeah.
next thing. You
I
know.
just love that how your journey has like come full circle. The themes that you had in your 20s when you were playing are have shown up and brought expertise to your career, post sports. And I think that's another really good point to point out for everybody. I think a lot of times in our journey when we have to switch it up or are kind of forced to. I mean, you had an injury. There's not a lot you can do about it if you're injured. You kind of
Yep.
have to figure out what's next. So for those out there listening, maybe you've been laid off. Maybe, something has happened that has really kind of ended the place where you're at in your life. You never know how all of your expertise, all of those pieces of the puzzle can come together to really create what you were meant to do in, in all these really fun ways that we couldn't have forced or planned if we had tried. So I love that. I love that it's continued to show up for you. So you mentioned travel a little bit. We mentioned it in the beginning. Travel for me has been completely life-changing. I mean, rock my world, life-changing. I'm a single mom, and in 2016, I took my 3 kids, who at the time, my daughters were 9 and my son was 13. So now looking back, I'm like, wow, I was brave. But I took my kids to Italy for 3 weeks, and it
Beautiful.
just I want to say I met like a different version of myself that I had never known my whole life. My kids were kind of like, who is this person? Like, and where's our mom? It just, it ignited so much in me that had been dormant or maybe that I didn't even know, and has changed. I mean, every year now I try to take my kids on an adventure or whatnot. So when did you catch the travel bug? Kind of walk us through how it's changed your life.
Yeah, yeah. So I always grew up traveling. I was born in Hawaii, so I was born on the beach basically, and then I lived in Germany because my sister was born there because my dad was in the army, and so I traveled around the U.S. and then every year I would go to from Seattle, go to Florida for like the summers with my grandfather, on these like trips and things like that. So I've always traveled in that sense. But then, kind of like yourself, really started to travel, and then you have sports. You're traveling all the time, and
Right.
internally, just within the U.S. and etc. But it wasn't really until about early 2000s, or 2010s or so, which I really started to kind of take travel to a whole new level, and then it also wasn't until I had a then it's picked up even more when tragedy struck for me that like left me basically on my own by myself.
Mm,
So I kind of leave it there.
yeah.
So from that standpoint, travel was an outlet for me to kind of find myself, or at
Yeah.
least I thought
Yeah.
so, and just redefine what was important. So I literally just started going places. I never forget. I was in Arizona, and then I went to the East Coast for a minute, just kind of figure things out, and then I just kind of it was like being hitting a dart arrow at a
Right.
dartboard. Thing. Oh, where did I go? Okay, here. So then one of my first trips was in Aruba, and then in Aruba took me Curacao, and had and et cetera, et cetera. And then just kept going over the years. Of course, COVID hit, so I actually lived in Curacao
Oh, wow.
for for I lived there for 4 years
Wow.
total. Yeah, 2 years was off and on. I was in and out in a bunch of places. I was going to Europe a lot, going to the Netherlands a lot, and Germany, Italy, hit Italy, and France, and it's easier to travel also when
Yeah.
you're on that side. Like you can take a
Right.
train to some places. It's like being in the States here.
Yep.
And where am I missing? So, but for bulk of my time, I spent in Curacao, there, and then eventually I came back and started going to Indonesia, to Indonesia and to India, and for me it's just a way of anytime I got into a situation where I needed to kind of reignite,
Yeah.
you know, getting on a plane randomly with people who don't know you, right? Like sometimes
Yep.
it's just therapeutic. Um, being in a plane in the skies, being somewhere that you also didn't know people, and kind of finding your way. For me, that was the outlet. And then it's always, I've had an interesting pathway through those scenarios to from relationships to now being married again
Yeah.
to my wife, finding my wife in Bali, or meeting my wife in Bali and be married now. And so it's still one of those things where
Yeah.
traveling has never failed me for moving my life forward into
Right.
different standpoints than I never would have imagined. So
I love that. It puts you out of your comfort zone in a way that very few things can, in our normal day-to-day life, and just leaves you open and present. I think being present is one of the things I love the most about travel. I mean, the way that our lives go a lot of times in the US is just very monotonous, very day to day, very like not awake at all in my head. And you go on a trip, and I think I read on your Instagram that you met your wife or your future wife, well, your wife now, but then
yeah,
like on the street in Bali, and it's like
yeah,
because you
yep.
were awake. I mean, if you were on the street in New York, probably not. You know what I'm saying? Like just having that openness to learn whatever lesson life is trying to teach you. I think it's so hard to make that connection.
And that's what travel teaches you as well. When I say travel, I mean it's going to a place and being immersed in the cultures,
Yeah.
being immersed into even people's food, and just understanding that there's a different way of life, but we're all alike. A
Right.
different way of
Yes.
life, but we're all alike in some attribute that we can learn from and just get to know, if nothing else, right? And so I always love that. And to your point, I met my wife on the streets of Bali,
Wow.
um, you know,
Really
randomly. Like
eat,
it's
pray, love, right? You had the eat, pray, love experience.
yeah, yeah, it's literally the most random encounter you'll ever have. Um, I was in my own zen like then, and was walking down the street. I had been in Bali for at that point. I think it was going my second month. So yeah, but my second month or so, something like that. So everybody in the hotel already had known me at this point, meaning all the workers and stuff, and all the people who had the shuttles. So I just had a glimpse of my eye. I saw this orange shuttle, and I put my hand up because I was going back to the hotel, and then there her and her mom was on the
Wow.
orange shuttle, and I had literally a split second to we well, actually we talked for like 45 seconds because it wasn't that long of a ride. And where you from? Oh, she's from Russia, and I'm from the U.S.
Yeah.
and we talked. I just had some quick chatter, and that was that. Then I had a split second. Um,
Wow.
do I ask her for to basically for, and I called it a nightcap, and she didn't know what it was. Like it was basically a drink,
Yeah.
obviously, or not. And I did. I went for it. If I would have hesitated, then I may have never saw her again because the hotel was big. It's not like it was,
Right.
you never see your moment on the last so real quick, right? So I did. She said yes, and then we basically was inseparable after that. For
Wow. I love
and
that so much. I love that so
yeah,
much because we talk a
so
lot on this show about relationships and just growth in general, and also manifesting. And to me, that sounds like the ultimate manifesting story. Like I love it because of course it wasn't random that you got on that shuttle or that bus, and
it
it wasn't
wasn't right.
random that she was there.
Yeah,
It wasn't random that that was the one time where you're like, I'm just gonna ask. I'm gonna take this moment. It was all part of that plan and probably part of your healing journey or the journey you had been on
exactly.
to heal or
Yeah,
to find yourself or whatever let you be in a place where you could see her. I think a lot of times if we haven't done our own work and we're just looking for someone to kind of fill that spot, it just doesn't work. But if you take the time and do your own work, it's almost like
correct.
you recognize it in each other.
And that's exactly what happened. And so now, here we are. Well, I have a daughter now. We have a daughter now who's
That's
going on
amazing.
6 months. So
Best age
that
ever. They're so fun
yeah,
at 6 months.
she's so adorable. So
Yeah.
6 months, and Yeah, and so you know, even then, I think the other good part about us is that she was aligned. Of course, for her, it was a similar story the other way, which is
Right. Yeah.
interesting.
She was doing her
Like,
healing journey and getting ready for you, and you were doing your.
yeah, yeah, and
Love it.
it's so crazy and how that I know and how the world's just intersect and synergize into
Yeah.
the things that we liked and to the things that we wanted moving forward. We even same age, right? Like, I mean, you can't draw this all out. And you know, she had a long career in as a corporate attorney and got burnt out, and so that was her story, and came to was looking for this her own zen and
Yeah.
peace and similar on the different story, but
Right.
similar pathway other side. And here we meet, you know, in the center of a boot, where to your point, you know, the movie made similar about the same experience,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is, you know, ironic, you know. And so I love it. We love it. We're it's been a heck of a journey of, like I said, now we have a 6 month old daughter, which we're so proud of
Changes your life
and happy
forever.
to be
That.
here.
Right.
Changes life changing. So you talk about kind of adapting, and you know, I go from this kind of rogue, you know, single for lack of a better, well, at least not in married relationship
Right.
over many of years, and uh, then now to married and kid.
Yeah.
But I love it. I
It's
love it.
it's an
Yeah.
incredible journey, and congratulations on all of that. I love
Thank you.
that, and thank you so much for being willing to share it, because
No
I
worries.
I love a good manifesting love story. I think there's so many people out there who give up. You know, we live in like a very apt society, which has a lot of negative that can come with it. And
Yeah.
I always say, like, if you want to manifest the love of your life, you got to do your work first. Like, do
Yeah.
your work. Like, get ready to the place where you are healed and you are happy and you love your life and you're in a good spot, and trust that the universe is doing that to whoever you're supposed to meet as well, so that you can come and have something beautiful together, versus like just eeny meeny miny mo picking someone. Like, that's just not the way to go.
Absolutely. No, I mean, you know, I got to be open to the world, open to, I see the world too. And it's hard for me to talk in just in, you know, in a
Yeah.
like a US standpoint. You got to be open to the world. And it's a big world out there, you know, like, I mean,
Amen
there's
to
so much
that.
to see. I tell people all the time, like, at least once in your life, if people doesn't have a passport, or if they've never been outside the US, you know, or whatever, like, go somewhere and
Absolutely.
experience it. And you'll come back feeling enriched and different than where you're, what you probably even thought
Yeah.
about a particular place, or the other side is, or you may think the same. I don't know, but that's for you to decide.
Right.
Or, but the bigger ordeal is that you at least come away with being able to understand a culture and
Right.
people different than us. That's what I love most about being travel, just in and out of the U.S. culturally. You can experience, and at the end of the day, I realize is that we're all pretty much the same. We
So
all want the
hard.
same
Yeah.
things. We want
Absolutely.
to be healthy, good families, and have a lot of abundance. Everybody
Yep.
wants the same thing. It's just about, you know, how people live in different places to get it done. That's it.
Yeah, and there's so much that we can learn from others and bring back and adapt in our lives. I think that first trip in Italy for me was so life-changing, because I didn't even realize that I wasn't happy before, really. You know, I was like I achieved a lot of my dreams. I was working really hard, but all of a sudden I was in an environment where beauty was a thing. Like, everything
Yeah,
was beautiful, you know. People weren't rushing to get the check in a restaurant. Everyone's like, "Oh, enjoy your time. Have, you know, sit, relax."
exactly.
And you're just like, "Oh my God, there's a whole different way to live." And this really resonates with my soul. So how do I come back and implement some of that in my real life? And I've been on a mission to do it. It's not
Hmm.
easy, but it absolutely can be done. And for my kids, it's been so important for me to show that to them. I mean, that was more important than almost anything else. I sacrificed a lot to take them. They've been to 7 countries, and I've been like very, you know, I wanted to show them diversity in all different types of ways and how
Yes.
big the world is. And I just
Hmm.
encourage anyone listening, if you haven't traveled, get your passport, put the
Please do.
application in, go get your $10 picture, and just have it. Be ready, because you never know when the opportunity can come along.
I'll leave with this and say, look, the first thing that we did for our daughter, I think her month two, I believe. I think she was 2 months old, and we went and got her passport.
Yes, I love it.
2 months. I think it was two or three, month
Is
two or
that?
three. And so now she has her passport. So there's no excuse for
Yeah,
anybody who's older, who's adults, who should have her passport, because
exactly.
it's a big world. But yeah, no,
Love it.
I'm a big advocate for travel, and I will say that's been a saving grace. I mean, I think you sum that up. It's been my saving grace in many a standpoints of that,
Absolutely.
and
And
that's
what's
my
your
story.
travel IG? Where can everyone go follow you and
Yeah,
support
yeah,
you?
yeah. There's a few. So, Entre Nomad is so you can at Entre Nomad on Instagram or also on YouTube. I have some blogs here. I really share them. We're a little backed up because, as I mentioned, just had a baby, so
Right.
literally like 10 blogs backed up. But we'll get caught up here soon. And just we like to give insights of our travel. For social forum, if you want to connect and network as well, I'm on LinkedIn, John Bronson. You can find me there. You can also find Social 4M on Instagram at Social 4M, the number four, letter M. And
Perfect. And I'll
I
make
think
sure
that covers all. Yeah.
perfect. I'll make sure all those links are here in the bio description. And thank you so much, John, for sharing all of your wisdom and your story with us. I've loved getting a chance to pick your brain a little bit. Thank you so much.
Sarah, this has been fun. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right, everybody, go comment and do all the things, share the love. And until next time, get out there and hustle and thrive.